At E3 in 2017, BioWare announced their new IP, Anthem, and they showed off a pretty good looking gameplay trailer, and people were hyped, and so was I. Then they announced it was an always online live service game, and I completely lost interest, to be honest, and I decided to wait for the game's release, which was in 2019, and wait for reviews to see what the game was like and how people had received it. And, well, bullet dodged, I guess. Now, over 4 years later, I decided to finally play this game to see if it was actually shit. Now, BioWare absolutely needed a win, a major win, because just before they announced Anthem, they released Mass Effect and Andromeda. And, well, that was kind of shit. I'm not going to go over the development story of Anthem, as it is a gigantic story and that could be an entire video on itself, and I think people have already done that, and there's a big article on Kotaku as well that goes through it. But pretty much it was shit management that kept changing decisions all the time, and effectively while the game was in development for 7 years, it only really had 18 months worth of actual proper development before release, because shit just kept changing all the time. On release, yeah, it hit 59 Metacritic PC, 54 PS4 and 65 on Xbox, and the general feedback was that players liked the core gameplay, the shooting, the flying, the javelin exosuit abilities, but everything else around it just seemed undercooked, underbaked. And apparently the launch build was a few weeks old, which was missing major bug fixes, which of course didn't help. And seriously, how do you mess that up? How do you release the wrong build on release? That's just stupid, right? What was also funny is apparently a lot of the things that players didn't like the game, the developers had brought up with senior leadership up to 2 years before the game released. But the senior leadership was like,
nah, it'll be fine.
So the game launched in February 2019, and in February 2020, seasonal updates would end, and they announced a substantial reinvention of the core game, comparable to when Final Fantasy XIV pretty much killed itself off and relaunched as Final Fantasy XIV: A Realm Reborn. Then a year later, in February 2021, EA were like, nah mate, the rework's cancelled and we're not going to do anything more for Anthem now, but they decided to keep the servers open, and the servers are open now. And because of all the negative feedback around Anthem and the live service multiplayer portion of the game, all multiplayer content for Dragon Age 4 was cancelled. And yeah, we're still waiting for Dragon Age 4, and goddamn, I love the Dragon Age series. I might play through all the games again, ready for Dragon Age 4 with like a save file if you can import it across. But yeah, the servers are still open for Anthem, and I decided to finally play it. Over 4 years after it was released, over 2 years since development ended. So what is it like to play now? Well, starting with the tutorial, you get the Ranger Javelin. Javelins being the mech suits you control in this game, and the Ranger is the all-rounder Javelin. Combat in this game feels really good. It's got great movement, great shooty mechanics. It's cool, it looks good, and generally the graphics and effects you get from the world and the combat are good, and it runs really well. I mean, it's a bit of an aged game now, 4 years old, so it should run well on the system that I've got. And flying is good, right? It's cool. It's like almost like an Iron Man suit flying around. It's good, right? This tutorial is pretty damn good. Then once the tutorial is finished, you get to unlock a javelin of your choice. You can stick with the Ranger, which is the all-rounder, or there's a few different ones you can unlock. There's the Colossus, which is like a big beefy tank one, the Mage one, which I can't remember the name, but it has some sort of like magic abilities, and the more agile one called the Interceptor. Now, when I play RPGs, I generally go down like a standard fighter, sword and board kind of guy. Get me on the front lines, I'll tank. And yeah, in MMOs, I play as a tank. So I decided to do something different and go for what I thought really was the weeb javelin, the Interceptor. Now, the Interceptor is like the complete opposite of how I generally play RPGs, right? It's really, really fast, has lots of quick melee hits, lots of maneuverability, and ultimate weeb attacks. And you know what? I'm really liking it. I can be flying around, quickly dive down into combat, slash everyone up, keep dodging around, jumping in and out, slashing more people, flying up into the air and slamming back down, doing some more weeb attacks. It's really cool, right? This combat is really damn good, and this combat really is like the core gameplay of Anthem, and it's really good. I'm quite surprised at this moment why people really dislike Anthem, because yeah, the combat is really good, and when you get to level 8 you unlock a new javelin slot. So I went to what I consider the more norm for me, the Colossus, the big strong tank. You get some big ass guns like this big minigun, you have a massive shield which you can just use to absorb damage and smack people away with, you can smash into the ground like Hulk, lots of big explosions, lots of cool abilities, and yeah, the Colossus plays really well, but completely different to the Interceptor. The Interceptor has a lot of like combo melee attacks, but the Colossus, it has like one smash to the ground, and that's it. It's more, I would say, of like a ranged guy, or really its smash ability does do a hell of a lot of damage, but yeah, I found myself using the guns a bit more with the Colossus. And then after I unlocked that, I pretty much stuck with the Colossus until I stopped playing the game. So it's good so far. I'm really enjoying it. The javelins are cool, the combat is cool, flying is pretty good as well, but that's where the good stuff ends. Now, do you remember at the beginning of the video where I said I wasn't really interested in the game when it was announced as an always online live service game? And I think the always online stuff impacts the game in a negative way in a few ways. Now, first, after finishing a mission, like immediately as soon as you finish the last objective or you have a conversation with someone and it finishes, you have a 10-second countdown timer, and then it puts you to an end screen to show you all the XP you got for this mission, the rewards you get, and then you get dumped back to a menu to either go back to the hub area called Fort Tarsis, but more on Fort Tarsis later, or you can choose to do a new mission. But choosing a new mission puts you back into a menu and puts you back into the matchmaking system and eventually loads back into the world instead of just keeping you in the open world. It's just not good, right? Also, if you need to go to the toilet mid-mission, you're not allowed to. You're flat out not allowed to, because you'll go AFK and you get disconnected from the server, because fuck you. Now, the open world, while it's cool flying around, the open world itself is boring. It feels just like the same area throughout the entire map. Everything generally just looks the same. There's not really any variation. There is some unique structures here and there, but it's just the same biome. Now imagine playing something like Starfield, right? Where every planet you visit is the same generic, empty, rocky thing. Okay, right, yeah, bad choice, since that's what Starfield's like. But imagine Mass Effect, where all the planets are the same. World of Warcraft, where all the zones are the same. This world design is just a massive oversight, right? A massive mistake from BioWare. Also, what doesn't help is the quest design. Now, pretty much all the quests in Anthem is go over here, press and hold interact a few times. Now go over there, press and hold interact a few times, kill some guys, quest complete. Just awful, right? It's just awful. Now, I mentioned Fort Tarsis earlier, right? So what's Fort Tarsis? Well, it's a first-person small hub area where you talk to NPCs, equip your javelin, do some shopping, accept some quests, and hand quests in. This place is boring as fuck. The NPCs are boring. The important quest NPCs are boring. The dialogue is boring. There are some choices you can make during dialogue, but they seemingly have no actual impact apart from some very minor reputation gains with various factions. And walking around this area, while it's quite small, gets old really quickly. I ended up just speaking to people and hammering the escape key to skip through all the dialogue because I didn't want to be in this place. The dialogue didn't interest me and the story didn't interest me. I don't really know what the story's about apart from some guys that attacked Fort Tarsis a while ago are back and they're attacking again, pretty much. But I generally just didn't care because it just wasn't interesting and no NPC made anything interesting. Which, comparing this to nearly any other BioWare game, you just speak to all the NPCs. You want to speak to everyone to get all the quests and find out all the lore and everything. But with Anthem, it's just shit. But I kept soldiering on because I wanted to finish the game and wanted to get the full experience. But did I finish Anthem? No. Why is that? It's because of this fucking mission. Locate the tombs in free play. That sounds simple, right? Fly around in free play, which is like a no mission open world exploration thing. Fly around and locate these tombs. Sounds simple enough. And it is. And when you're flying around in free play, there are little events you can do here and there to spice things up. But these events aren't interesting. It is just generic. Press and hold interact with these things or kill a few waves of enemies. It's not interesting. I did a couple of these and I thought, right, let's go to the first tomb because it's quite close by. I get there, I press and hold interact with the door to the tomb, and I get this. A stupid fucking checklist, which I've actually finished all of them apart from one, which is to open more treasure chests. What? I need to open more treasure chests before this tomb will open up for me. So I need to complete a checklist of busy work in the free play open world exploration to be able to carry on with the main story. Nah, mate. So I fly to another one, and this one is, another checklist, but this time I need to do more world events in free play. Do you know what this really is? This is the devs padding out the length of the game because they don't have enough core story content. Complete these checklists of quote unquote optional shite to finish the main story. And do you know what this moment was for me?
Players don't stop playing a game if it's not good enough. Players stop playing a game if there is a single moment in that game that makes them say, I don't know what to do, I'm not enjoying this is overwhelming, I feel like this is too complicated, I feel like this is not worth my time, I feel like this has become pay to win. Players stop playing games because they are presented with what I refer to as a quit moment, and it succeeds. It makes them quit.
Yep, this was my quit moment. So, Anthem, it's moment-to-moment gameplay, the combat and the flying is really damn good, right? It's cool as fuck. But everything else with the game is utter shite. And I see now why it scored as low as it did. And yeah, I would score it probably around the same sort of 5 to 6 out of 10 range that Metacritic has ultimately given it. And I wouldn't recommend playing it today because, yes, it's not going to go anywhere. There's going to be no development on it. It's not going to get better. It's not going to get worse. It's probably just going to age worse, actually, as time goes on. And it's really a massive disappointment. I think there's a lot of potential in Anthem because of its core combat. But yeah, ultimately, shit management at EA or BioWare, fuck the game, and that's it. That's why the game died. And that's why EA probably decided not to fully reboot the game, because there wasn't the player base and probably not enough interest in whatever this reboot was going to be. So, give the video a like if you liked it, a dislike if you didn't, subscribe for more, and thank you for watching.